In this video, we're going to include exponents in our operations. First of all, what's the meaning of a positive integer as an exponent? So for example, if we have 2 to the third, 3 here is called an exponent. Sometimes we also call it a power. And 2 is called a base. So the meaning of 2 to the third is multiplying the base number 2 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. So exponent, if the exponent is a positive integer, then it always means multiplication. And exponent tells us how many times we're going to multiply that number. And the base number tells us which number we're going to multiply. So we're going to get 2 times 2 times 2, which is 4 times 2, that's 8. Make sure when you do the question, you distinguish this problem from 2 times 3. If we write 2 and 3, they're the same size, and they're on the same level. We're not going to raise 3 like we did here. And that's just one multiplication we do, 2 times 3, which gives us a 6. But when you raise 2 to the third, notice this 3 is raised, and this 3 right here is not raised. So that's the biggest difference. So when you do 2 to the third, it's not 2 times 3. They're not the same thing. So make sure you remember 2 to the third is not equal to 2 times 3. It actually means 2 times 2 times 2. So as long as you remember this meaning, we can do the next 2 examples. And recall the operation, the order of operations. Please, parentheses, excuse, exponents, my dear, multiplication, division, and Sally, addition, subtraction. Alright, so first, we do have parentheses here, but as you can see inside the parentheses, it's just a negative number. There's no operation to work out. So negative 4 is just negative 4. It's already in the simplest form. The same for negative 3. So we're going to move on to the next operation, exponent. And we do have an exponent here and there, and we can work them out. So remember the definition of exponent, a positive integer 2, means this 2 here means how many times we're going to multiply the base number negative 4. And notice the parentheses include the minus sign in the parentheses. So when you take 2 copies, you have to take everything inside parentheses. So that's another rule we have to remember. When you look in the second example, this minus sign is not included in the parentheses. When you take 2 copies of the number, you only take what's in the parentheses, which is 3/4. And that minus sign will stay as a single copy. But in this case, since the minus sign is inside the parentheses, and this minus sign is outside parentheses, and make sure you remember the difference. So inside parentheses, when you take 2 copies, you have to take 2 copies of everything in the parentheses, including the minus sign inside parentheses, negative 4 times negative 4. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and write down the first step here. That minus sign will stay because it's given the problem. We have to keep it. And when I see the exponent, we're going to multiply 2 copies of the base number 3/4. So I take 1 copy of 3/4 and take another copy of 3/4. Notice that the minus sign is not repeated. Only what's in the parentheses is repeated, 3/4 and 3/4. But in this case, the minus sign is repeated because it's included in parentheses. So the difference is whether the minus sign, whether you need to do 2 copies or 3 copies, it depends on whether this minus sign is in the parentheses. Okay, so here to do negative 4 squared, we need to multiply 2 copies of negative 4. So negative 4 times negative 4. And next step, if you want, you can go ahead and work out the multiplication here, but I'm going to wait until the next step to do multiplication altogether. in this step, I'm going to do exponent. So similarly, we multiply 2 copies of 5. In this case, we don't have parentheses, and you just take the closest number. So that minus sign, you don't have to take 2 copies. You just take the 2 copies of 5. So now we can do multiplication. Notice that I didn't put a multiplication sign there, but with the parentheses, it means multiplication. The multiplication sign can be omitted. So there's multiplication here, multiplication there, and multiplication here. Okay, so -4 times -4. We know 2 negatives make a positive. So we get a positive, and 4 times 4 is 16. The next step, we can do -2 times -3, because you can think of this number, this minus sign is a -2, and by adding a plus sign in front of the negative sign. So this is like plus -2 times -3 times 4. We can do all these 3 together. So -2 times -3 is 2 negatives make a positive. So it's positive. 2 times 3 is 6. And then 6 times 4 is 24. The other way to do the problem is to leave the minus sign by itself and only multiply 2 and -3 to get -6. And -6 times 4 is -24. Then you also have the minus sign there. So it's minus -24. We know negative and negative make a positive. So let me show a little quick here. The other way to do the problem is keeping this minus sign and work this out. 2 times -4, 3, -6, -6 times 4, -24. So you're going to have -24. And we know 2 negatives make positive. That will still give you plus positive 24. That's why we didn't do this way, because the way I did it was much quicker than this. So let's go back to the way we had before. So I'm going to put a plus sign in front of the minus sign and multiply -2 and -3 and positive 4. So now we do the last multiplication, 5 times 5, that's 25. So now we can add all 3 numbers together. You can add these 2 numbers, 16 plus 24, that's 40. 40 plus 25, that's 65. That's the final answer. Now let's look at the second question. And it's the same type of question, but we have fractions in the problem. So we need to be very careful with the fractions. So the first step, which was already explained, we do the exponent first, because in the parentheses, it's just a fraction. It's already simplified. We don't have to do anything. And that's why we moved on to do the exponent. And this exponent 2 means 2 copies of the base number 3/4. So I put 2 copies of 3/4 times 3/4. And that minus sign is giving the problem. We keep copy it down. Now the next step is multiplication. Again, I'm going to wait to do this multiplication in the next step. The parentheses can be omitted in here. Now next we do multiplication together. So how do we multiply fractions? We multiply them straight across. If there's anything that you can reduce before you multiply them straight across, you should go ahead and do that. So in this case, top number 3, bottom number 4, top number 3, bottom number 4, they don't have anything in common. We cannot reduce any number. Let's go ahead and multiply straight across. So 3 times 3, that's a 9, over 4 times 4, that's a 16. So the multiplication is actually the easiest among all the operations for fractions. And the second multiplication, 3 over 1. So you don't have to put over 1, but if you put it over 1 underneath 3, you can see better. Top times top, 3 times 3, that's a 9. Bottom times bottom, 1 times 4, that's a 4. And minus 5. Over here, you got 2 steps, 2 ways to do the problem. You can either add these 2 fractions together or subtract them together when you get an answer and then subtract 5. Or you can treat this 5 as 5 over 1. So you are adding or subtracting 3 fractions. So I do all 3 of them together. So that's the way I'm going to do. And in order to do addition or subtraction fractions, we must have matching denominators. And when we take a look at these 3 denominators, they don't match. So first thing we want to do is to find the LCD, which is the least common denominator, which is explained in the previous section. So if you forgot how to do that, go back to look at the previous examples. So 16 and 4 and 1, we can see very quickly LCD is 16 because 16 of course goes into 16. 4 goes into 16 and 1 goes into 16. Or in the other words, 16 is a multiple of 16, 16 is a multiple of 4, and 16 is a multiple of 1. So that's our LCD. Now we are going to change all the denominators to the least common denominator 16. So all the other signs should be kept. So minus, I keep it. I want to change all of them to 16. Notice the first one is already 16. But I'm going to go ahead and just put all the bottom, change all the bottoms to 16. So the first one, compare the bottom, the denominator we already have, which is 16. We want to change it to 16. That means we don't have to do anything because it's already 16. So let's just copy the top number 9. The second one, originally we are given a 4. We have 4 on as a denominator, but now we want to change this 4 to 16. So in order to do that, we use the property we learned in the previous video to multiply both top and bottom by 4. And notice that after you cancel the 4 and the 4, you still go back to 9/4, and we know 9/4 is equivalent to 36 over 16. So 4 times 4 gives us 16. 9 times 4 gives us 36. So these two fractions, 9/4 and 36 over 16, they are equivalent fractions. If they are equivalent, so instead of adding 9/4 to this fraction, I'm going to add 36/16 to that fraction because they have the matching denominator. And similarly, we want to change this 1 to 16. And if you want to get 16 from 1, we have to multiply 16. And 1 times 16 is 16. 5 times 16 is 80. And similarly, what we did here was, in order to get 16 from 4, we multiply 4 by 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. And then the top, we multiply the same number. So we always, when you do that process, we always figure out what number we should multiply on the bottom in order to get a new denominator. And then on the top, you just multiply the same number. So now we have matching denominators. All of them are 16 now. So I can do -9 plus 36 minus 80. And to simplify that, we're going to get, so -9 plus 36, that is 27. 27 minus 80, that gives us a negative 53. And then that minus sign on the top can be moved in front of the fraction because negative divided by positive is going to be negative. So the answer is negative 53 over 16. And as you can see, this fraction is already reduced because the only number that can go into 16, only prime number that can go into 16 is 2. But 2 doesn't go into 53. That means they don't have anything in common. So that's a reduced fraction.